Driving it home with Patti Vasquez, Patti Vasquez. From global conflicts to greenhouse gases, the folks refusing to wear masks says, and politicians getting caught grabbing ass says, she's driving it home with Patti Vasquez.
Wow, everybody. Hi, it's Friday, and certainly not a slow news day at all. I don't even know where to begin. You know what? I'm going to go ahead. I think the end of the news before the weather was about the stock market and how we had the biggest plunge since October. NASDAQ was down 4.1%, S&P down 2.6%, Dow down 1.3%. NVIDIA alone dropped 6%. 6%, and the whole NASDAQ plunged over 4.1%. And here's the thing, the market tanked. Okay, this is maddening. This is insane, right? So you would think when there's a good jobs report, you'd be like, oh, that's good news. But okay, yeah, because May added 172,000 jobs, way above the about 88,000 jobs economists had expected. Unemployment held 4.3. So, okay, so why, I'm sorry, this is, I've been clear about this before. I got a D in economics, but this also still seems like something that makes no sense because unemployment held at 4.3. So why the bloodbath? Because a strong labor market plus stubborn inflation, which we know has been happening, means traders are now fully pricing in a Fed rate hike at year's end, which Trump has been demanding anyway. So his Fed chair that he appointed is most likely going to do that. And that's your federal to local money line. Trump puts his own guy in charge of the Fed, screams for rate cuts, and the market just bet against him. Higher rates means that your mortgage, your car loan, your credit card all stay expensive. In Chicago, in the Twin Cities, in Seattle, all of our listening audience, as well as anyone you're tuning in all over the country. We know we have friends listening in Maryland and California and Michigan, just to name a few, Vegas, all over the country. And when Wall Street had a bad day, but you know what? Small town Main Street has had a bad year. And and this is just. This is the stock market. Worst day since just so you know, in case my giggling makes you insane. First of all, I'm so happy to hear that. Secondly, madness, insanity makes me slightly insane and laugh like an insane person. I don't know what to tell you. I take my notes from Harley Quinn. I mean, as far as the madness goes. So at any rate, so Trump's in Wisconsin at a farmer roundtable and asked the crowd, right, shaking hands with the dairy and soybean guys, while his tariff fights are the reason their exports are so unstable, right? He's got a photo up in the cheese state. I'm just saying, this is where milk prices, dairy prices are all going up. And then the immigration rule limiting some immigration benefits. A judge has blocked the sweeping freeze on immigration benefits just a few hours ago. That means that families in Berwyn, in Cicero, right here in Chicago, are deciding whether it's safe to apply for the help they're legally owed. The Social Security, SSA. Okay, I'm just trying to give you some of the stories that have been coming out today because I can't. It's really a fire hose again of these stories that maybe we're not able to grab onto. SSA was going to mark 2.7 million people. I don't know if you guys caught this one. They were going to, I'm sorry, I feel like I'm getting hysterical. The Social Security Administration was going to mark 2.7 million living people as dead, not as a clerical error. It wasn't like they caught a mistake. It was going to be policy. Because if you get flagged by the feds as dead, you lose your bank account, your benefits, your job. So that was something that they wanted to do in order to squeeze, I guess, under the guise of we want to make sure that immigrants aren't getting benefits. Okay, but here's another one. I'm sorry, I just saw all these stories like all at once, and I just had to go through them as quickly as I could because it's a lot. It's a lot, folks. Trump and OpenAI are talking about a government stake, and they're tying it to a chip sell-off. Okay, and. All right, then, the AI bubble that just cost retirement accounts today, the AI, there's a chip sell-off happening, and the AI bubble today cost retirement accounts 4%. the same AI the administration wants to get cozy with. These are just some of the, and then there's not even Iran and, okay. This is what's happening. That's just the top line. Anyway, so tell me what's on your mind today, folks. I know for a lot of people, it is the announcement today that the Chicago Bears are going forward with plans to build a stadium in Hammond, Indiana. I am currently in Joliet, Illinois, and did I say it right? Because I know people in Joliet get really mad when I say Joliet, so I'm gonna say Joliet as well. But I know it's Joliet. I just said Joliet to be funny, and I know it's not, but I enjoy saying it. At any rate, I was here in Joliet for a conference. You guys know, if you're listening to the show with any regularity, you know that I've been talking with the friends of mine from Are You Really Winning and some gambling organizations, and they asked me to come speak and MC their event, and it was an absolute honor. And while we were here, I was hanging out in the restaurant, and I heard some folks talking about, they're actually from Indiana, and talking about, actually they're quite excited. There was one guy who walked through wearing a Bears shirt, and someone said, "Oh, did you hear about Indiana?" And he goes, "Oh, someone said, did you hear about the Bears?" And he got scared. He was like, "What happened to the Bears?" And they said they're moving to Hammond. And he goes, "Oh, I don't care where they play. I thought you were going to say something bad happened to Caleb." So, I mean, maybe that's just the way it is. That some folks don't care if the Bears leave, especially if you're out here in places like Joliet. Do they really care? Does anybody outside of Chicago? I mean, I was going to be somewhat okay with Arlington Heights. I figured it'd be easy to get there by Metro. It seemed like it'd be accessible for more people throughout the area. Soldier Field, the Friends of the Park make things extremely difficult to develop on the lakefront. And I get that. I get what their purpose is. And that's why we don't have the George Lucas Museum. That's why we didn't move forward on, I think that's why I might be wrong, why we didn't have a dome, why there wasn't further construction on the existing Soldier Field, which, by the way, I told you a few days ago that we still owe over $500 million on the old stadium. And the fact that we couldn't get it done in Springfield is partly not surprising, and yet seemed a little bit, I don't know, a little flaky. But we'll talk more about that with our good friend Mike Mercado, who's going to come up in a little bit. We're going to talk about the WCPT's very own Mike Mercado is going to join us from the Cubicle on Sunday nights. He's going to be on with us in just a few minutes. But right now, let's take a call, because I know that Jim is on the line from Chicago. What story's jumping out at you today, Jim?
Hey, Patty, we'll get another team. We'll get a better team in Illinois. We're gonna have one team. Indiana with two teams. Ohio with two teams. New York's got three. I think California's got about five. So we deserve another team. We'll get a good team. But who runs Microsoft again?
Is it Gates?
It's Gates. Yeah, he came out and pointed out the irony that the richest man in the world cut USA. He goes, if that isn't nuts. The richest man in the world cuts USA, which is going to cost millions of lives. But their favorite tune is waste, fraud, and abuse. Now, that's a colloquialism that has to go down in this century, because it absolutely is meaningless. It doesn't mean anything. In other words, anyone who Trump doesn't, if they're not waste, fraud, and abuse, that outfit, I'll eat my hat on State Madison. I mean, that's all they're about is waste, fraud, and abuse. Abuse of our citizens in the street, waste of a ballroom and a $2 billion slush fund.
Jim, did you hear today that the DOJ says that they can just take down the Statue of Liberty? By the way.
Oh, sure. Because they're drunk with power. They're drunk with it. But the joke of it is, Patty, that let them have their fun now. It's like it's like you have a tremendous hangover. They're going to have a hangover very soon in about 5 months. They're going to have a hangover that won't quit. So I'm confident of that. But in the meantime, it just shows you how insane the world can get when you've got a candidate who's part of the thespian art, and he doesn't know a thing of what he's doing. He has no idea what he's doing. But yet he intends to put everybody in these sensitive, scientific places and so on that have no idea what they're doing. So I mean, this has got to come. It's got to come down to a crash.
Jim, come on now. A guy who says they're not afraid of germs because they've snorted cocaine off a toilet seat. You're telling me that he's not rooted in scientific knowledge? Come on now. What?
But has he gone to medical school? I don't think he's gone to medical. He went to. He was a lawyer, right? He's a lawyer.
No, but he is fascinated with the genitalia of raccoons and dead whale heads.
How about with the videos with Kid Rock? What's wrong with him? I mean, he's absolutely mentally unstable. But and then Dr. Raz, crazy Dr. Raz, he's giving advice out too. Selling, remedies for rheumatism, whatever else he's doing. I mean, these people are just. What kills me about them? They can't get enough dough. That's what kills me. I mean, if I'm getting my age now, I figure, my God, whatever I had, I blew through anyway. What's the difference? If I die on a nickel, it doesn't bother me. I mean, these people are too much. But anyway, we're going to beat their pants off. And I can't wait to hear your interview with Mercado. That should be fun. But I say bon voyage to him. Honest to goodness, because I mean, remember this: the Chicago White Sox fans were Chicago Cardinal fans, and as Bill Gleason, the great sports reporter, said, you've got to understand the two teams. The Chicago team was the Irish Catholic team because Comiskey was an Irish Catholic, and they considered the Cubs a Protestant team. And that went on for years. And my family were Cardinal fans, and I still root for the Arizona Cardinals. So my point is, we could use another. We could use another team. We could use another team.
I know. Yeah, I mean, look, if this team goes, I have grown out of my allegiance. Jim, it's funny that you brought that up because I think you've heard my story about why my dad hated the Chicago Cubs.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I know. I remember the story. I don't blame him. I don't blame him. You think your dad hated him? You haven't met me yet because I really hate him. You know what I mean? Nobody hates him. I hate him.
Did I ever tell you which ball player told my daddy to go F himself when he was 10 years old?
Yeah, Cabaretta.
It was Cabaretta.
The shortstop.
Yeah.
The shortstop.
Yep.
And you pointed out this nutty center fielder the Cubs have, and they won 4 games since he made that remark. So they're not exactly floating on the air themselves. Anyway, Patty, great talking to you, dear.
Get what you sow. Thank you.
Thank you, Patty. Take care, dear.
Thank you, Jim. Have a great weekend. You reap what you sow, folks. And I want to take a break here. First, I want to thank our sponsors. Thank you to sponsors of the WCPT Pride Parade Float. We are so honored to have Pride Coffee Roasters as one of our supporters, sponsors of WCPT's float. You can go to pridecoffeeroasters.com. They make incredible single origin roasted to order beans. And really, I love their coffee so much. I've been out of the house for 2 mornings, and I'm so sad. So I can't wait tomorrow morning to wake up to my cup of coffee with Pride Coffee Roasters. Go to pridecoffeeroasters.com. You can put in an order for a bean subscription. They will. You can pick one out, and they'll also curate one for you. And they are absolutely amazing. And we will see them on June 14th at the Jefferson Park Sunday Market at Jefferson Park. So we'd love to have you join us. It'll be from 9:30 to 1:30 a.m. We also have apparently that day there's going to be a 250th celebration of this country. The Jefferson Park Parade is going to be in the area, and they'll be ending the parade right there at the park. So come enjoy some music, some incredible small farmers, small businesses, a lot of great community, and we'll be gathering to have a wonderful Sunday afternoon together. And you can join us all, and you can visit pridecoffeeroasters.com. We also want to thank our friends at Source Solar. Go to source.solar and make an appointment with Peter Sorellis. Maybe it's time to get solar panels on your house or business. Go to source.solar. And of course, I've been talking about our friends at Are You Really Winning? Go to areyoureallywinning.com and find out more about how gambling can hurt our families. It's been an honor to work with them all week. And I also want to thank our friends that are now sponsoring. I want to announce some of our other sponsors. We have Social Change on our float. We also have our friends from Illinois Veterans for Change, as well as the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention and Berman's Auto Group. Let's take a break here. And we're going to be joined by Mike Mercado from The Cubicle to talk about the Bears building in Hammond. That's weird. More after this.
Hey, Google, play WCPT.
Streaming Chicago's progressive talk from TuneIn.
You're listening to Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez.
Thank you so much for joining us as we continue our drive home on WCPT 820 Heartland Signal and KKNW 1150. Hello to all our friends tuning in on Facebook and YouTube. I apologize there isn't video today because I am broadcasting remotely from Joliet for the Illinois Problem Gambling Association's incredible weekend of conference and conversation. And while we were here, news broke, which is kind of gambling related, sports related, and all the other things, especially Chicago related. So I thought, let's bring Mike Mercado on from The Cubicle to talk to us about this announcement that the Bears have decided to move forward on building a stadium in Hammond, Indiana. Hey, Mike Mercado, did you think this was going to be the deal that this was once the legislature convened for the summer, that as long as it was off the table, there's nothing coming back. They had no plans to do anything else. Did you think Hammond was going to be this close of an announcement?
Well, I am a believer of believe when somebody tells you something over and over again. And that is what we've seen consistently from Kevin Warren, from the McCaskies, that at the point when we knew Chicago, that current Soldier Field wasn't the answer anymore, there were two locations, Arlington Heights and Hammond, Indiana. And I'll be honest with you, Patty, I saw the news today, and maybe for a hot second, I got a little bit of excitement to be like, oh, this is something happening. I'll be honest with you, though. The statement comes out, and if you listen and read closely, the Bears, the McCaskies, they did not say they have a location picked out in Hammond. They said they're going to pick an exact location. And then on top of it, they still own a $200 million plot of land they played for in Arlington Heights that they tore down Arlington Park. And as far as I'm concerned, I went on Zillow because me and my wife are addicted to it. And Arlington Park is still not up for sale. So until either shovels hit the dirt in the wasteland that is Wolf Lake in Indiana, or the for sale sign goes up to Arlington Heights in Arlington Park, I believe this is just more posturing. We saw a report, I forgot what NBC reporter came on with it, but about an hour after Mike Braun and of all the ridiculous things that he said, one of the ridiculous things that he said was, Hoosiers, help me welcome the Chicago Bears to Northwest Indiana. And then an hour later, a report comes out that Kevin Warren was talking to a top-tier state legislator in the state of Illinois saying, we are still excited to talk with you guys. So I think this was a whole lot of nothing. This was posturing. This was posturing from an organization that has done everything backwards. Patty, this just to give the great people of Driving Home with Patti Vasquez, our amazing listeners all over that listen to us. This is the time of events where you kind of have to see how the Bears did things. In September of 2021, they had a purchase agreement for Arlington Park. Then in January of 2023, they hire Kevin Warren from Minnesota. In February of 2023, they officially bought Arlington Park. Now, they've been doing this for 5 years. The Papa Hallis always wanted Arlington Park. It wasn't until Kevin Warren was brought into here, after all the deals were done, that he started again negotiating with Chicago, started negotiating with Naperville. That's when he started hearing Hammond, Indiana. They have done things backwards. They decided to buy the house before hiring the realtor. And now you're seeing everything come to roost, if you will.
Well, and that's the thing is that it does seem as though the Illinois legislature, the governor, the mayor, I mean, like that day the mayor walked out on that stage and like had this entire presentation, like super pumped up about it. Like that seemed really disjointed from anybody else who was involved in the process too. Like that seems like a little bit like what you're talking about. Like he was putting the cart in front of the horse as well. It smacked of that, didn't it?
It feels like Kevin Warren this entire time has been building some type of relationship with Mayor Brandon Johnson, who we had on the station earlier on today, who mentioned why he keeps going hard in the paint on trying to get the Field Museum, the campus, all of that kind of brought back up, right? Like the amount of money that might be lost during Lollapalooza and the renovations that still need to happen. But there is nowhere to build. Never forget that the Bears still own about $400 million worth of debt of current Soldier Field. They have a lease until 2033. If they're more than happy to go to Arlington Heights, go to Indiana, use your own money. Not only do you still own money to the stadium you play in, but you still have a lease. So nobody's telling you to go today, go tomorrow, go in the middle of the night. And let's be honest about it. The world that we live in right now, this deal was essentially started or done in 2021, official in 2023. The world is a lot more expensive in 2026, 2027, 2028 than it was when you could have done this. Every single day, labor, equipment, any type of steel guard, anything is going to be so much more expensive now. And you're dealing with one politics. And this is I think the part that why it's so smart to go after sports fans the way these corporations, this business, which don't forget, this is a $10 billion corporation business. Go after sports fans and things that matter. You talked about it before the break with Jim about, how much sports means to people. You have that funny story about your dad. Like, this is stuff that's generational, what sports mean, especially in cities like Chicago. But they will pit citizens against each other. They will tell you, you will have people say, we don't want free school lunches. We don't want universal basic income, universal health care. But they'd be willing to have their taxes hired for, a stadium. But God forbid if the Arlington Heights School District wanted a little bit of extra cash. God forbid if the Chicago Park District needed a little extra cash. This is where it gets interesting, and we've seen it with Donald Trump with the UFC, where using sports and politics is so beneficial for these business people.
I was listening to someone talk about one of the reasons, they were basically claiming the decrepit nature of the stadium. And I was like, how long did the Bears play at Soldier Field before the renovation and the big UFO saucer landed there? How long? I mean, how old? I mean, I get that Wrigley has been renovated, but it's still, in essence, I mean, like the bones of it are still there. I get that Comiskey had to come down. There were tons of bad sight lines and the beams everywhere. But I mean, you're telling me, well, how old is the stadium? 90s? I mean, I get, is it
2003, 2004? After
23 years old? You're telling me it's I'm sorry. So you're telling me that the stadium is about the same age as my son. I just want to get this
shout out. Shout out.
I just
barely can drink. All right, Patty,
I'm
can
just
barely
saying.
get into bars. That's the stadium, the current renovation of the stadium that's still owed a bunch of money. Let's never lose fact that there is still money owed to that stadium. And I also, and I don't know how you feel about this, but leveraging the fact that there's so much money that is still owed, that there's going to be taxes needed, because don't forget the Bears, while the team is, a $10 billion, has a worth of $10 billion. This is not a family that owns Walmart, that owns Amazon, that owns Tesla, you name any, Apple, Microsoft. This is the family of the NFL. These are the for all the old school heads, so the Beverly Hillbillies of the NFL. They struck gold because Papa Hallis had a team, but they don't have cash. So it's not like Jerry Jones, who could just spend $6 billion in a stadium in Dallas and own it. So the Bears need every single dollar they can from taxpayers. We went from a $2 billion maybe stadium to $5 billion all of a sudden. We need tax breaks. We need tax freezes. Like, there was a lot of weirdness that they were asking, that they were continuously moving the goalposts, no pun intended. And finally, Illinois called them out. Look, you have a governor that either wants to be governor again or might have presidential aspirations. Is he going to go out there and say, yes, I will give the Chicago Bears X amount of billion of dollars, just so then Marco Rubio or JD Vance can have a hit piece on him in 2027, 2028? JB Pritzker, known billionaire, gives billionaires more money, which, by the way, they're doing already as it is as an administration. So this is where we're at right now. But you have people in the state of Illinois who might have legit concerns about the way our government is run here, our local government, from sanitation all the way down to taxes. But that isn't an excuse to then excuse the billionaires and the team that you love, that I love too, to ask for more money and for you to not get a break. And also keep in mind, if you want to feel a little better, Patty, the New York Giants, New York Jets don't play in New York. They play in East Rutherford. The Dallas Cowboys play in Arlington. The LA Chargers and LA Rams play in Inglewood. So it's not like it's the most out there thing that a major team that built a 70,000 seat cathedral doesn't play in an urban city in 2026 anymore.
Yeah, I mean, these are the things. So well said, Mike. Mike Mercado, Sports Cubicle, Sunday night. Let folks know what's coming up this Sunday.
Oh, we got a lot. UFC in the White House, the disgusting Alcatraz, the eyesore that's being built. That we've been covering it, leading up to it. The NBA Finals, the NHL Stanley Cup Finals. So much. It's myself, Dan Marver, Devin Tingle, Paul Shivari, the Sports Cubicle every Sunday night right here on WCPT 820. And if you want more Bears information, check us out at the Bear Era Podcast. And of course, Patti Vasquez got you covered everything Chicago. So you know our lady, our girl, our homie is going to have it covered here with everything with the Chicago Bears.
We may have to do some sort of sports roundup with and rotating or whoever from the Sports Cubicle. I think we need updates because I think we have not been leaning into this, and my head's starting to clear. I'm here full time now, so I can get more. I can get a handle on more of these conversations.
They hide us, Patty. They hide us. They don't like. They don't like this concoction of these two going together.
I found you. I've not found you, but the fog is clearing. My head is clearing. It's all falling into place.
I'm always here for you guys.
Mike, it's all falling into place. I'm not kidding.
The plan is coming together.
The plan is in place. You know what I'm saying? Mike Mercado, the Sports Cubicle, this Sunday night. Remind folks what time to tune in live.
9 p.m., but always on YouTube at the Sports Cubicle and right here on Heartland Signal, WCPT, 820 a.m. Chicago.
Excellent. Let's continue our conversation in a moment. We're going to have Mike Mercado very soon, as well as the rest of our friends from the Sports Cubicle. Have a great weekend, Mike. Thank you.
Bye, Patty. Love you. Bye, everybody.
Love you, too. More in a moment on WCPT 820 Heartland Signaling, KKNW 1150.
Hey, Google, play WCPT.
Streaming Chicago's progressive talk from TuneIn.
If you're listening to this station right now, you've definitely heard my voice before. Hi, I'm Hawk.
And I'm Pete. And we're with Source Solar, your local source for solar. Source Solar is Chicagoland's premier solar installer, providing solutions for over 1,000 homeowners and business owners across Illinois and Iowa.
With over a decade of industry experience and deep roots here in Chicago, we have the expertise to help your transition to clean, renewable, resilient energy.
We can guarantee that we save you money day one without any out-of-pocket cost to you. This means you have an instant ROI, instant payback, and can save money to add to your bottom line day one.
At Source Solar, we source everything as local as possible, meaning we always carry the Made in USA sticker.
Find us online at www.source.solar. Stop in our office at 5710 North Northwest Highway or give us a call at 773-985-3992.
And don't forget to ask for Hawk
or
and Pete.
No detours, no distractions. Just bold ideas and real talk. This is Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez.
Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining us as we continue our drive home. I am your host, Patti Vasquez, and I'm broadcasting out of studio today. So I want to thank everybody back at the station and everyone involved in the show who makes it possible for me to kind of do these little side adventures, I guess you would say. So first, I want to thank everybody back at the station. Lady B, Bedalia, holding down the fort, making sure that she gets your calls and texts and gets our guests lined up and that everything sounds good no matter where I am. And it can be challenging. You guys have no idea. And there are some days where we're frantically trying to connect, whether it's Wi-Fi or my equipment, all the things. And so Lady B has to be there where I'm like, can you hear me? Can you hear me now? And has to walk me through how to get on the air. So thank you, Bedalia. Matt Cummings, who also very patiently walks us through any sort of tech issues that we have and gets me on the air as well. Andy Miles, our executive producer at WCPT, who has to deal with my pre-recording if I'm going to be out of studio and have to be somewhere and lining up guests and putting together our show prep and the any of the reads that we do. So thank you so much. Jerry Walski, who has to, I would say, as much as everybody at the station thinks they know how scattered to the wind I am, as far as my brain works, Jerry's had to be in the trenches with me for over 7 years. And as he hangs on for dear life every single day and comes through swimmingly, I think. I'm not sure how he manages all of that. So thank you to the entire team and, of course, everybody at the station, Paul Shivari, Mark Mercado, who just joined us on the air. There's a lot of folks back at the station who make sure that I can get out. And I'm sure I'm missing somebody like Antonio or Jorge. There's just a ton of folks that are very supportive of the work that we do. We all have the mission of sharing these conversations, of staying on top as much as we can. Like I started the show with some of the news stories that were top of mind for me, and I know that there had to be some things that popped for you today. So if you want to give us a call or text, you can join us at 773-763-9228. 763-9278. That's 773-763-9278. And I'll just bring up to speed a little bit as to why I am in Joliet. I've been working for the last year or so with Are You Really Winning, which is a problem gambling group. It's an association that is funded by a lot of different organizations and corporations, and they work with 1-800-GAMBLER. I heard some incredible stories. It's been a very emotional 48 hours for me because I've learned a lot from people who work in the industry as clinicians, whether it's through mental health support, whether it's through bringing stories to light, working on the data, how do we do treatment. And I think one of the things, and maybe you've listened to my show over the year or so that we've been working with Are You Really Winning, and wondered why, and you know that I've made it very personal. I talk about my dad, and I will say this. I make not just my approach to the issues politically, but also any sort of supports or behavioral issues or the reason I got involved in politics and in government is I've been a liberal my whole life. For as long as I can remember, I've been liberal. I had some more, you would say, conservative leanings, whether it was couched in patriotism or fiscal responsibility in my 20s, and some of the things that I thought made sense. I knew that Reagan was wrong on so many things. There were Republicans that I was drawn to, and by the time Gore v. Bush happened, that was for me the end of sort of wanting to play nice. And I think that's, and when I say play nice, I mean thinking that you could negotiate, and that's for the politicians to do. And by negotiate, I mean be slippery in where I put my attention, and which the Democrats, if the Democrats went back to being who they were before the Southern strategy, I would not be a Democrat. I am a liberal. I am a progressive, and so all of and that comes from personal experiences. My politics, my view on the world come from my personal experiences and from the information that is available to me. If something comes up that I do some more research on, that I look into, do your own research. But, I try to go to as many sources as possible. I am drawn to the Democratic Party because right now, in this moment in history, they more closely align to my values. Are they perfect? I think we can all agree no, 1,000% no. But you can't get perfect in politics. It's not possible. That's a lot of peas in a row. So the reason I am in Joliet, and the reason I keep talking about problem gambling, is because my father was an addict, full stop, and not just gambling. And I don't think we say gambling addict enough. But I think that even for me growing up, I knew that he was an alcoholic, right? So we can say addicted to alcohol. We all are familiar with that and realize that some people, as hard as they try, need help. Their brain chemistry is altered by that need to consume have that altered state. We know that people are addicted to nicotine, as my father was. We know that people rely on that chemical change that it brings in your brain, how it makes you feel. And we don't do the same when it comes to gambling. And I've learned a lot about that in the last 48 hours. And I'm telling you, it's changed me forever, because I would say that my father's gambling was driven by the other addictions in his life. And so I'll never know for sure what came first. Was he altered because the adrenaline he got from gambling and then being sucked in and going into debt and needing that rush of wins and losses contributed to the alcoholism and the smoke? Like, those were all interrelated. And I've heard stories from so many people this weekend, and I'm so moved by what I learned. And so if you want to know why I talk about gambling addiction, it's because we don't, these are the areas that I think people don't, because it seems like it is recreation. And I'm not, as we've talked about before, it's not about being anti-gambling the same way I'm not anti-cocktails. I'm not against people having beer and wine. I am against the harm that addiction causes to individuals, to their families, and to our community. So I have, as I mentioned, politics have always been personal to me. The reason I got into politics was always personal. My son, when he was about 7 years old and was benefiting from a therapy that I learned other parents didn't have access to, was when I started going to Springfield and advocating for families like mine so that their children, so other people's children and their families could benefit from services I knew Declan was really thriving on. I wanted to fight for that. And while my efforts were nowhere near, like I minimal at best. I couldn't not try. Illinois continues to be one of the worst states in the country when it comes to services for people with disabilities and their caregivers and their loved ones. So I will keep fighting. I'll keep charging on. And in the same way, I want people to know that gambling is something that affects so many families deeply. There's not even a measure for it because we are so dismissive of it. It's so accessible. So if you or anyone, I know I've said this so many times, I feel like I've said it hundreds of times, and I'll probably start saying it thousands of times, and you might get annoyed. However, if I connect with one person who is struggling, or a family member who is struggling, the way my family did, then I've done as much as I could, and that is it. I'm at peace with that. It's 1-800-GAMBLER and areyoureallywinning.com, and I'll have more conversations in the weeks and months to come. And because it's not just about reaching those who are struggling, but for all of us to be available for these conversations, because we are available when we know someone has a drug addiction or an alcoholism addiction or a nicotine addiction. And there are ones that, there's a lot of stuff I learned about other addictions this weekend. And again, we'll talk more about those in the weeks and months to come. So let's take a break here. I know we've had some phone calls on the line, 773-763-9278. We'll continue our conversation, and I'll take your phone calls when we come back on WCPT 820 Heartland Signal and KKNW 1150.
Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT 820, where facts matter.
Patti Vasquez is taking your calls now.
All right, let's hit it.
At 773-763-9278.
I got a lot to say.
It's Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez.
I hope you have a lot to say. 773-763-9278. Let's get Roosevelt on the line with us. Hey, Roosevelt, what's on your mind, my friend?
First of all, I want to apologize because I'm throwing the garbage out, so you're going to hear a lot of wind. I'm going right back in. Unless you got somebody else. Yeah.
No, it's okay. I got you, my friend. You know what's funny? I don't have my big cans on, and go ahead and put that in a weird innuendo thing. I don't have my headphones on. I just have a Bluetooth. So when I'm in studio, because of the equipment we have, I can hear everything. But right now, I don't hear the wind. So carry on. I can hear you, my friend. Go ahead.
Okay, so I want to get into this conversation about the Bears. Okay.
Okay.
Now this is the way I see it. You tell me if I'm wrong or if you deviate from what I'm saying. Okay, so first of all, didn't we flip for that monstrosity on 2003?
That's what Mike was saying. It feels like it was longer ago. Maybe it's because I hate it so much. It feels like an eternity. I don't know. It's ugly. It's ugly.
Yeah. So we paid for that, right? The way I see it.
Go ahead. Yes, the way you see it.
The way I see it, directly or indirectly, it affected us. Meaning, money went to a sports team that should be buying their own stadium, whatever. Okay? And why do I say that? When you start a business, Patty, you got to pay for the mortgage or you got to pay for the rent, don't you? You don't say, hey, let me get a GoFundMe so I can start my business. And that's what I consider this Bears thing. It's like a GoFundMe. We want the city to pay for it. And a lot of teams have done that. One famous team is the Dodgers in L.A. That whole area of the Dodgers, that was all Mexican-American owned houses and lands. They displaced those people. They displaced those people, and they took their homes, and they just took. And that's how teams are nowadays. They don't want to flip for their own stadiums. So now, if they go, why don't they go to Moscow? Because a lot of these owners, Moscow Bears. The Moscow Bears. And it doesn't sound too far-fetched, and I'll tell you why. Because as we speak right now, the NFL, somebody mentioned this before on Joan Esposito, They've been playing in Mexico City, and those stadiums are filled. I don't know if you know it or not. 110,000 people is the capacity in Mexico City. And by the way, Azteca Stadium is no longer Azteca Stadium because they're getting like that in other countries. They bought the name, a business. I don't even know what the name of it is, but it's not called Azteca Stadium, and that's what it used to be. They rent the name such as the White Sox. The White Sox have been doing it. And bringing up the White Sox, that's another sore that I got with this city because of the fact that Daley was a Sox fan. That's why we got the White Sox Stadium. We paid for that. Our taxpayers pay for that. And I'm a Cub fan, but even if it was the Cubs, bye-bye, because other things are more important. And thank God that we live in a state and a city that supports the people first. Not all the time, but in this instance, in this example, the governor is right. And somewhat the mayor is not right because he wants to keep them. But don't keep them at the cost of the taxpayer. And that's just it. The NFL, and I'm not, like I said, Moscow Bears sounds great because they're already referred to Russia as the big bear, right? So,
yeah.
So,
yeah.
And a lot of,
I see what you did there.
Here, I'll tell you another one. As we speak right now, we have the New York Knicks versus San Antonio Spurs. The owner of the New York Knicks invited Trump. A lot of these, don't forget, the NFL was behind. They got together and they pushed out Colin Kaepernick, the quarterback of the San Francisco 49ers. They organized and they kicked the kid out. And the Bears at the time, I'll never forgive them for this. The Bears at the time needed a quarterback, but it was more important to stay in line and support Trump. And that was all the ownership in the NFL. And to be specific, that guy from Jerry Jones from the Dallas Cowboys. So Moscow Bears sounds great to me. Get the heck out of here. And here's another one for you. And since they're
but here before you hold on to that and remember what you wanted to say next, because you mentioned the capacity of Azteca, formerly Azteca Stadium. Do you know what the capacity is at Soldier Field, by the way?
I think is it 65, 55?
Yeah, it's 61,500. Yep.
Yeah.
And
yeah, pretty much
makes it I believe
Correct.
that makes it one of the smallest in the NFL, which means that the city cannot host essentially, well, not only that, but because they don't have a dome, so we can't have major events there, which was, and I imagine, I can't remember what the battle was, if it was the Friends of the Park that made that impossible, but it seems as though that would be problematic.
Yeah, and Patty, this World Cup thing is the biggest scam because they invented this prize to give them this peace prize. And speaking of the World Cup, I was a volunteer in 1994. I was in the middle of the street directing all the floats that were coming from different countries. In 1994, I still have a hat somewhere, and that. Okay. Yeah, I'm pretty sure because it says World Cup. I don't know where my hat is, but I do have that hat. And then speaking of Indiana, how do you like this idea? What if the Colts come to Chicago and the Bears go to Indiana? Because let me tell you, they're gonna take a bite out of the Indiana Colts, the Bears. So there's going to be a battle for seats in the state of Indiana.
How would they take a cut? I mean, I think that because they would draw on both a Chicago audience and an Indiana audience, so people are like.
Well, it remains to be seen. Now Indiana has a choice whether they go with the Bears or they go with the Colts. You see what I'm saying? Meaning, who are you going to go for? I'm talking about the people in Indiana because the faithful are still going to go for the Bears no matter where they play.
Right.
But I'm totally against this. I won't support them going to Indiana. No way. And here's another thing in closing. That's ungrateful of the Bears because this city has given them a lot. They gave them a stadium right in front of the lake. They renovated the stadium for them. Yeah. So what more do you want? A sucker. We're not suckers, and thank God Thank God that we're not living in another state where the governor would support this. I don't know what the count is, but it's happened not only in California, being a Democratic state, but it's happening in Texas probably. It's happened in other stadiums. And then that's the latest thing. The latest thing is you rent the name of the stadium. I'm totally against that. And it started with this Comiskey Park. And for what it's worth, the Cubs are still Wrigley Field, even though I hate the guy because he's a Trump supporter, the owner, but I'm still a Cub fan. But at least they didn't ask for money. They did it on their own, from what I understand. And you see the way. Have you gone to any games of the Cubs lately? It's like a mini
the last
town.
year or two, but since. It's like Disney World. It's like Disneyfied baseball.
It's like a mini town, and they put up all the name, and they asked for permits and everything. So, and I was in one of the original in the '80s, the bleacher bumps. We used to strap a radio, take your belt off, strap a radio, listening to Santana, and drinking wine because we used to sneak in wine. And yeah, we did. We'd be listening to Led Zeppelin, Santana, whatever, Rare Earth,
sure.
all those big, right, all those great groups from the 70s and 80s. But I never agree of a stadium. You can't put the stadium, a city or a state cannot put a stadium ahead of the people, because the people already stuck up. Huh?
Yeah, no, I agree. A listener texted in. Adam texts, the fee for the Bears to leave might be around $90 million based on their current contract, and that's still not enough to discourage them. And here's the thing, I mean, the fact that $90 million is chump change, they're like, yeah, that's fine, we'll go. We don't care. Leave it on the table.
Well, I think you mentioned this before on another occasion that it costs how much? $300 million for that monstrosity.
We're almost $500 million. Well, we're almost at $500 million on what we're still for paying that stadium off. And while having them in Chicago, keeping the Bears in Chicago was important during the first, in the short term, it really has not impacted the city enough to. The renovation accomplished that short-term goal, right? The smaller stadium makes it impossible to have major events in creating better revenue for the city of Chicago to make it beneficial for us. So.
And can I add something to Indiana? I had a girlfriend from Hammond. That's where they're going? They're relocating to Hammond?
Yes.
Okay. I had a girlfriend. I'm sorry, Indiana, but there's nothing in Hammond. Compare that to where the Bears are right now.
I know.
I mean,
it's very grim. No offense to Hammond, but it's a bit of if you contrast, downtown Chicago to Hammond and the lakefront and the skyline, no, there's no comparison. You can't have it. Roosevelt, I've got to close out this hour. I appreciate your phone call, and I'm glad I could take you to the alley and throw out your garbage. And it didn't bother me this time. Apparently, I need to use my Bluetooth in the studio, so I don't mind background noise. Have a good one, Roosevelt. Everyone, we have some. Thank you. We have an hour of pre-recorded conversation. I'm so honored to have been joined by some great guests, and I hope you'll enjoy the conversations. Have a wonderful weekend. Thank you, Lady B. Love you all. More after this on WCPT 820 Heartland Signal and KKNW 1150.
WCPT 820, Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter.
Driving it home with Patti Vasquez, From global conflicts to greenhouse gases, the folks refusing to wear masks says, and politicians getting caught grabbing ass says, she's driving it home with Patti Vasquez.
Thank you so much for joining us. We continue our drive home here on WCPT 820 Heartland Signal, KKNW 1150 in Seattle, and KTNF AM 950 Minneapolis, St. Paul. And of course, all of our friends tuning in on your digital, what word was that? Your digital devices. I just smushed those up. Digital devices, your apps. Maybe you're tuning in at heartlandsignal.com. Maybe your TuneIn app. Maybe listening on Facebook, because all of our podcasts live wherever you tune in for your podcast. I'm really thrilled to welcome to our studio, not to our studio, but to our conversation today. We know that a lot of policies have changed over the last year or so in regards to making sure that those who need nutritional supplements are supported. It's a little bit challenging, and there's a lot of rising costs. And one of the ways in which we make sure that kids stay healthy is through school lunch programs. And since school is out for more than 20 million American kids, that means the lunches they count on all year are about to vanish. Here in the Chicagoland area, roughly 1 in 9 of our neighbors are already don't know where the next meal is coming from. In the Minneapolis area, it's about 1 in 10. Summer is always hard for food banks, and this year it might be brutal. So we want to make sure that we are doing the best we can to be informed so that we can help out. So while we wait on the people who perhaps contributed to this mess, not for our guests to weigh in on, we want to talk about solutions. Folks, there's some folks building bridges in the meantime. Our next guest runs global public policy for Instacart, and they've teamed up with Feeding America for a way for you to put groceries in local families' hands in about the time it takes for you to order your own meal. Casey Aden-Wansbury, thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing tonight?
Thanks so much for having me. Glad to be here. Really excited to talk about Instacart's largest ever summer hunger campaign and a tool we've built that makes supporting your local food banks as simple as a few taps on your phone.
Outstanding. How long has this program been going on?
We've been doing the program for a number of years, but this is our largest ever campaign. Our goal this year is 300,000 items delivered nationwide between now and the end of August.
What makes this the biggest year? Is this something that's been growing? You're seeing the need? What sort of has informed the genesis of expanding this?
Absolutely. Well, at Instacart, our mission is to give people access to the food they need and more time to enjoy it. And so we like to use our reach and our technology to see how we can partner with experts like Feeding America, who really know how to make sure that we get exactly what communities need to them as quickly as possible.
I think a lot of the infrastructure for that, too, really kind of solidified during the pandemic because people had to be creative and they found new ways and new solutions, didn't they?
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, most people are thinking about, summer baseball games, kids out of school, et cetera. 21 million children this year in this country who rely on free or reduced cost meals are going to be, those meals are suddenly going to stop.
Yeah.
So as a result, childhood hunger spikes during the summer months. And food banks, as you mentioned, food banks are really seeing a surge in demand for support from families who need food this summer.
So tell us how this works. Walk us through community carts. If a listener wants to contribute, let's say in the next 5 minutes, what do they do right now? And how does that transaction process?
Absolutely. It's super easy. You just go to instacart.com/donate on your phone or laptop, and you easily find your local food bank. We work with 300 different food banks across the country through Feeding America. So find the closest one to you. And then you shop directly from a curated list of items that the food bank has specifically identified are urgent needs at the moment. An Instacart shopper will then deliver those items directly to the food bank, and Instacart waives all delivery and service fees on every donation order.
And that's the thing, is that when a food bank tells you what they need, because, as I mentioned during the pandemic, we worked with a lot of food banks, and folks donate, a lot of dry goods, a lot of canned goods. You've got pasta, all kinds of sauces and things like that. What they would always light up about was when you brought them fresh produce, fresh meats, things like that. So this is a way to enable food banks to have access to that kind of food, right?
Exactly. That's the beauty of using this technology that Americans already use to fill their own grocery carts to help food banks is that the food banks can be the ones to pick exactly what they need. So if what they need is produce, then they're able to do it. So whatever it is that they need, they can pick it from local grocery stores. And all you have to do as a consumer is go to their webpage or, select them, go to instacart.com/donate, select them, and their cart's already filled. You just pick whatever items you want to buy and they get sent automatically.
And that's similar for dedicating which food pantry gets that, or do you kind of have a list so people, if they recognize one, they're like, oh yeah, I'm familiar with that food pantry in my community, they're able to dedicate it to that particular site?
Yeah. Well, yes, exactly. So the Feeding America Network works with, hundreds of food banks across the country, and 300 of their food banks, representing all regions across the country, have opted in to be part of this program with us. And so if you, as a consumer, all you have to do is go to the website and look, and you'll be able to look up a list of the food banks that are participating, and guarantee there's going to be one in your area that is participating.
So with the public policy seat at Instacart, how much bigger is the whole food banks are being asked to fill right now than maybe a couple of years ago in your experience?
There is really a real need. And I think, as we talked about earlier, sometimes that is masked during the year during the school year, when summer comes and you no longer have those supports of school meals, you really see that need deepen. So this is part of a work that we've been doing, a broader food access work that we've been doing. We work with partners like not only Feeding America, but like the Mayor's Alliance to End Childhood Hunger, for example, which is a group of bipartisan mayors across the country who are working on trying to tackle tackle this in their communities. We've been advocating for adoption of Summer Snap, which would help solve some of this. And so there are a number of ways to really, pitch in and see what you can do to help your local community. But this is one of the easiest ways that consumers can do it, is just instacart.com/donate.
Oh, slow that down, because I talk really fast. That was fast.
Sorry.
No, don't be sorry. I just know how my listeners are like, what was it? Because I talk very quickly. Tell us the spot again.
Sure. One of the easiest ways that consumers can help right now families who need it is by going to instacart.com/donate and select their local food bank right now, and it'll be there today.
Hold on a second. Apologies for the phone. That's actually the CEO of an organization called Kids Above All that I work with, and they work with at-risk children who are perhaps in foster homes, who are in between family situations. So that's one of the great thing about the food pantries is a lot of organizations can also connect them with those food pantries. What do you want folks to know about these food pantries that you're coordinating with? Because I think people in the background, there's also this element of shame, right? Of I don't want to say that I need something. There's no shame in making sure that you and your family have nourishment, right?
Absolutely not. I mean, that is precisely what food banks are there for. They serve families of all types throughout the community, of people of all ages, and children are among the most vulnerable often. And so I think making sure that that they're adequately stocked with the types of groceries that they need at that moment to serve the particular community, that's what's really important.
Now, you guys, does Instacart process SNAP grocery orders as well?
We do indeed. In all 50 states, instacart.com, you can go and you can use your SNAP funds from an array of local grocers.
I think that's fantastic. So for my Chicago, Minneapolis, and Seattle listeners with local food banks, I want you guys to take a look. Again, Instacart is helping out communities across the country with over 300 food banks. And what is one thing you want every person hearing this to do before they go to bed tonight?
Just go to instacart.com/donate and find your local food bank. Give as much or as little as you want. The list of what the food bank needs is right there.
And for the folks who work at Instacart, I mean, this has to be something that kind of jazzes you a little bit, right? Is knowing that in addition to being such a well-known organization that has gotten people through some trying times, this has to be quite fulfilling for folks, isn't it?
Absolutely. Our mission is to give people access to the food they love and more time to enjoy it. And so being able to use our reach and our technology to help make that just a little bit easier for families in need is really important to us.
Now, Casey, before we let you go, I do want to ask you a little bit about yourself, because I think it's always nice to get a little bit of a feel for where someone's coming from. Where'd you grow up, my friend?
I grew up in Eureka, California, Northern California.
Okay. Are you still in California?
I am, yeah. I'm in the Bay Area right now, but
Okay.
I'm certainly spent a lot of time in Minneapolis in particular, and in Minnesota. So looking forward to hearing from your listeners out there.
I appreciate it. Well, thank you so much again. It's been great talking to our friend from Instacart, Casey. I know that you've got a lot of work to do, and let us know if there's anything that comes up that you want to inform our audience about, because we're always interested in working with those who are helping our communities.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you for all you do.
Absolutely. Have a great night.
You too.
Thank you. Thank you. More after this on WCPT 820 Heartland Signal, KKNW 1150 and KTNF AM 950.
Hey, Google, play WCPT.
Streaming Chicago's progressive talk from TuneIn.
You're listening to Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez.
Thank you so much for joining us. We continue our drive home and now head into the home stretch and into the weekend. I wanted to bring in somebody who is going to talk to an issue that is very near and dear to my heart on several levels. Summer, of course, means that we're getting out in the water. Maybe in Chicago, it's our lakefront or pools. Maybe it's a backyard pool. All kinds of, you got your sprinklers going, you got your slip and slides. So our lakefront is going to get packed. The pools are going to be open soon, and every parent should be doing head counts, by the way. We'll talk a little bit about what I do to make sure that I'm paying attention to where my kids are, because after decades of numbers going down and drownings, they're starting to go back up. Drowning among little kids jumped 28% in 2022 compared to 2019. And this is something I want to talk about today, because it's not just a safety story, it's an access story. More than half of American adults have never taken a single swimming lessons. And of course, that hits kids the hardest. Joining me right now, someone who knows the early childhood world from the inside, is Jen Wirt, the founder and CEO of Coral Care, and she spent a career on how kids develop in these critical early years and what happens when families can't get access to what their kids need. Jen, welcome to Driving It Home. How are you doing?
Good, thanks. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. So tell me a little bit about, first let's talk about water safety, because, when I was a kid, and everybody remembers having fire safety, right? We had an assembly, you watch a video, they said stop, drop, and roll. We don't really get the kind of access to learning about those things as kids here, do we?
No, I also remember stop, drop, and roll very well. But I agree. Water safety is so, so important and not talked about enough, unfortunately.
No, I've worked with legislators to do something, at least in Illinois. Nowhere in the country is water safety a requirement the way fire safety has been in the past. So I think that people, when they hear that drowning is drowning the number one killer of toddlers?
I think it's kids under 4.
Under 4.
It's the number one killer of children under 4.
So what do parents need to know about what's really happening when we hear about those numbers?
Well, I think the challenge is that through like TV and movies, we tend to think drowning looks noisy, lots of splashing, very big. But drowning is often very quiet and not something that you would notice at all, which is scary. The statistic that I think worries me the most is actually that like most drowning is happening at a time that is not designated swim time. Mm-hmm. So this is a result of pools not being appropriately gated, not having self-latching gated, kids not being supervised enough. A kiddie pool left out with a little bit of water in it is still a danger that a child could fall in and drown. And so this is why it's so important to just take water seriously.
Absolutely. I was telling the folks that helped arrange this interview that so I was a lifeguard for 6 years, and I still one thing is that let's talk about the lifeguards. A lot of times parents will just assume the lifeguard is taking care of their kids' safety. And that is not, because a guard could have anywhere from individually up to 100 people that they're responsible for. So tell folks, not like, what do you think about, like, having that confidence that the lifeguard's there, I'm sure my kid's fine.
I think it likely creates a false sense of security. Unfortunately, like, parenthood and childhood look very different now. Like, if you think back to when you were at the pool as a child, if you looked around at the parents, maybe they're having side conversations, but there's one thing that you don't see, in our past, which were phones.
Yes.
And phones are such a distraction. If you go to any pool, whether it's a private pool, the lake, you're at the public pool, every parent has their phone in hand. And unfortunately, we're all like victims of checking every notification that comes in. We're just addicted, is the reality. And that moment of checking a notification, checking an email, that feels like tense, like, oh, I just looked down for 1 second, could be enough time for a child to drown. And so, like, we have to force ourselves to, like, put the phones away and be as present as possible. And even if that means, like, you're in a group of parents and one of them's a designated watcher for 15 minutes at a time, whatever it takes just to make sure that, like, 2 eyes are actually on the pool or on the water at all times.
I agree. One of the things that I do is, well, especially when the boys are little, what I do, my boys are now 20 and 22, but I do have a child with severe disabilities, my 20-year-old. However, with my 22-year-old, when they're both little and, at pool parties, whatever, one, I was always close to the pool. And the other is I would always put them in swim shirts, like bright swim shirts, so I could see where they were. People, I don't care if people tease me or whatever, it's worth it to have people make fun of you for having an eagle eye over your kid in the water than the catastrophic effects of not paying attention, right?
Yeah, I mean, even like every pool is different. Mm-hmm. With my kids are 7 and 9, and we were at a hotel pool that thankfully, like, we got in the pool as well, and we noticed that the ledge had kind of like a secret second ledge that went into the pool by about 6 inches, and my kids like to jump into the pool.
Right.
And had we not noticed that, I wouldn't have warned them, like, you need to take a bigger jump out horizontally, or you're going to slam into this ledge. There are so many dangers that we just don't think about. Right. And it's so important to, like, check out the full scene, prepare your children in that moment at that time, because swim lessons are just so important in general, and like having confidence and understanding of the pool, but there are other layers of safety.
Yeah, I mean, there are places, and sometimes we've heard really sad stories over the years of hot tubs and sometimes in pools where there's a suction point and someone gets pulled into it. So yes, that's a really good point, is to know what the different variables are at the particular pool that you are at. Such a good point. And the other thing is going to a beach. We're pretty close here to places like Michigan City, Indiana, where there's like sand dunes. So you could be standing, you think that someone's in shallow water, and the next thing you know, they're 3 or 4 feet underwater. So that's another thing too, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, in the lakes, you don't see the bottom. No. And that's the reality, that like you don't know what they're stepping into.
Exactly. And now I do want to say this, because let's talk a little bit about coral care, because this is something that you founded after personal experiences with your own child. Tell people a little bit about why all of this matters to you, and what you want to impress upon them as far as what you've learned in your experience.
Yeah, so I was the parent that had the gut instinct that something wasn't right with my child. My daughter was healthy, but just wasn't progressing in a way that I was reading she should be progressing in all the apps and all the books and whatnot. And I knew that something wasn't wrong. And I was kind of seeing those things layer and just met with, you need to get care as early as possible. But unfortunately, it's really hard to actually find somebody to work with your child. And so I started Coral Care to just change how access is delivered, to build a network of as many pediatric occupational speech and physical therapists as possible, distributed across the country, in communities and towns around the country. We're in 9 states now, including in Illinois and the Chicago area. Our team comes to the home where progress is best set to happen. And the home can look like a lot of things. It can look like a backyard. It can look like in the swimming pool to actually do like aquatic therapy, things like that. It can look like a living room. But come to work with your child in their natural environment and where you're more present and able to help them all the other hours that you're with them. And we take insurance.
Excellent. And I will say this, one of the things that we benefited from, and it took a long time because, as you know, with a neurodivergent child, so Declan's actually missing a significant part of his corpus callosum in the frontal lobe. And, so it took a bit for water, but once he started liking water, he just loved it. And that's a really wonderful sensory development tactic as well, don't you think?
Water is amazing. There are some, cold water is its own sensory experience, but typically what's really great about water is it envelops you in pressure across your whole body. Mm-hmm. And that can be so important for kids who need support with sensory regulation, like that moment of being immersed in the water.
Right.
Gives them the big hug, essentially, that they're looking for in order to develop. It also, like children who have trouble with gross motor development on land, it's just a different experience in the water. Muscles are activated in different ways, and it can be really powerful for a child to work on things in the water where they may have been struggling on land. And progress is ultimately what it comes down to. Exactly.
Now, you mentioned the kind of services, providers, therapists that you coordinate with families. Now, you mentioned that you take insurance, so you don't work along with early intervention. That's a separate program from what you're working with, right?
We're totally separate. So this is private therapy. You don't need a diagnosis to begin.
Oh.
I always say to parents that there's no harm in an evaluation. Everything that we do is play-based. So to your child, they're going to have a wonderful person show up at your home and play games with them, do obstacle courses, play with their favorite toy, talk to them. And to them, it's just going to be an hour and a half really wonderful experience. But for you, it's a lot of answers that you otherwise wouldn't have had. So there's no harm in getting an evaluation. It's the best way to understand if your child could use some support. And sometimes support is long-term, but sometimes it's short-term. And your child can just work on something and grow in the right way. And the earlier we work with the kids, as soon as things are identified, the better.
Now, where can people find Coral Care? And when as you mentioned, there's an eval. You don't have to, go through a doctor. There is, if you sense that there's something that your child can benefit from, they can benefit from Coral Care. Is that right?
Exactly. Even if you were told they didn't qualify in school, like my second daughter has occupational therapy at home, she doesn't qualify in school because the bar is different.
Right.
To find Coral Care, you can come to joincoralcare.com. So that's joincoralcare.com. You can search for a local provider near you, answer some questions if you're not sure if it's, if your child needs occupational therapy versus physical therapy or speech. We will match you with a clinician who will come to your home, and you can book directly online.
Excellent. Well, again, we've been talking to Jen Wirt from Coral Care, founder and executive director, CEO of Coral Care. And we were so grateful for you for joining us to talk about water safety and to let parents know, because in Illinois, we are struggling right now with early intervention placement. I know that there are parents on a list, so if they have insurance, and if they don't have insurance, it's such a sad time right now for folks who are worried about their child's development. But this is an option for those who have coverage. And now, does that include Medicaid for coverage?
We take commercial plans today. Mm-hmm. We're always adding new plans. We also offer self-pay rates. Our rates are generally lower than what you see elsewhere. Our goal is just
access. Yeah, I appreciate that. Well, Jen, it was a pleasure to meet you, and I look forward to having conversations with you in the future and find out more about the work that you do. Because as I mentioned, I have a beautiful 20-year-old who benefited from speech therapy, occupational therapy, developmental therapy, hippotherapy, aquatherapy. It was a lot of I was therapizing 5 days a week. And I will say this, I did love having the therapist come into the home, but we were doing it 5 days a week, and that's a lot of stress for keeping your house clean. The therapist used to come in and they're like, I've seen worse. I'm like, yeah, that's not soothing. That's not making
I know. There's no judgment, but I know. I get it.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for the work that you do and everyone that you collaborate with for helping families feel supported. And ultimately, the goal is to help our children reach their potential. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. Have a great evening. Let's take a break here. We'll come back in just a moment on WCPT 820 Heartland Signal, KKNW 1150 and KTNF AM 950. And thank you wherever you're listening and however. More in a moment.
Hey, Google, play WCPT.
Streaming Chicago's progressive talk from TuneIn.
No detours, no distractions. Just bold ideas and real talk. This is Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez.
Thank you so much for joining us. We continue our conversation here on WCPT 820 Heartland Signal, KKNW 1150 in Seattle, and KTNF AM 950 Minneapolis, St. Paul. Of course, hello to all our friends watching on Facebook or on YouTube or tuning in there, because this one might just be audio since we are recording a little bit earlier. As many of you know, my son is graduating from college, so a lot of our guests have been gracious enough to give us some time during the day to record some of these interviews. And I'm thrilled to welcome to the show Marcus Walsh, who's a president of Preservation Rockford Company, a nonprofit organization dedicated to proactive protection, saving, and repurposing of historic architecture in Rockford, which I know there are so many great buildings there, and I want to learn more about that. Marcus, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Yourself?
I'm doing okay. It's a beautiful day, so that helps out a lot. So first of all, are you a native of Rockford? Did you grow up in Rockford?
No, I was actually born in Columbus, Ohio. So I've only been in Rockford about 8 or 9 years now.
Oh, what brought you to Rockford from Columbus?
We had family out this way, so we moved out this direction.
And how did you get involved with the Preservation Rockford Company?
I started it based on the demolition of Briggs Mansion here recently. So we were trying to protect that building, and with it not going the way that we had wanted to, and with it ultimately being demolished, we chose to be more proactive and protect what we have left.
Yeah, I appreciate that tremendously, because I think a lot of people, that resonates with them. That there was a building in our community that was being demolished. It just, everyone felt so helpless, that there was nothing they can do. So I want to learn about what, maybe we can learn from you some actions to take to preserve the architecture we still have. What are some of the things who are some of the people you collaborate with to protect the architecture in Rockford?
Definitely. Some of the people that we collaborate with here, we collaborate a lot with Landmark, Illinois. They're the major regional group out this way, so they cover all of Illinois. So we partner with them, and we have another beautiful home coming up here, the Otis Eddy Homestead. There's a preservation committee meeting on the 9th of July. So we're looking forward to that when we filed for Landmark for that property. And so we're hoping everything goes well for the meeting.
I do too. How many buildings are you focused on right now in the Rockford area? What should people know about the projects that you were trying to amplify for everyone?
Definitely. So there's 11 that we're looking at right now. Some of those, it gets tricky because some of them are in historical districts already. And then some of those aren't marked in at all for landmarking. So we're looking into those too. So there's quite a few that we're looking at. We're going to be looking to get most of those taken care of this summer.
And where can people go to find out more, to participate and support the work that you're doing?
You can go on our Facebook page, Preservation Rockford Company. We have it on Facebook. A lot of our up-to-date stuff we post on there. We post about the meetings coming up as well for the landmarks.
Now, you mentioned that there was a mansion that was being demolished. What was it about that building that caused you to get involved? Because some people will see a demolition and be like, well, that's a shame. I really wish we could have done something about that. What moved you from, being disappointed or upset that happened and getting active about it? Because not all of us do that.
Definitely. So Briggs Mansion, it was built by Chester C. Briggs. He was a known abolitionist as well. So it's got that heavy civil rights history tied to it as well. So we were trying to protect it and do as much as we can to try to save it from getting demolished, knowing its history and everything that it meant for everybody in the Rockford community as well.
And it seems like you've got a nice handle on managing a Facebook page so that people can learn more. There's one here that I don't know if this is your post or if there's you have other admins about how I wish we cared about our history like they do in Europe. I get that. It does seem like everything here is disposable, and we don't recognize buildings that, as you just mentioned, are something to remind us of our history, what we can learn, and hopefully avoid making horrible mistakes. And the one reason to erase abolitionism history is because somebody wants to relive slavery. It's the only, they don't want to know that there are people who fought, right?
Right.
Yeah, it's a scary thing. Well, tell me about some of the other projects, some of the other buildings, and some of their history that you'd like us to know.
So we're looking at the Woodruff House too. That house is important because it was one of Rockford's former mayors. So that one is really important. We're trying to get in touch with the Rockford Housing Authority because they currently own it right now. So we're trying to talk to them and offer them that there are credits that they can use for their restoration. So it's fun too because we get to learn about all the history on specific houses and buildings and stuff like that. So,
have you always been an avid fan or somebody who's followed history? Something like, because I'm a history major. I got my degree like 30 years ago, but I still consider myself a history major. I think we should all be history majors, right?
Definitely. Another thing too, like with the comment that you had said too, I was like growing up through school, I loved like everything about the Roman Empire too.
Yeah.
And so it's just amazing how the Colosseums can stay intact the way they are. And then you look at some of our history and it's just getting demolished. And it's like, a lot of these other countries, they safeguard and federally protect their buildings. And I wish, we could do something like that here too.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. So how can folks support what you're doing? I know you have a GoFundMe and your Facebook page. Are those the two best places for folks to financially support you and maybe get involved and join your efforts?
Definitely. Our GoFundMe, too, we have set up for donations. So if anybody would like to donate or contribute, they can. If not, we totally get it, and a share helps, too. We have those on our Facebook page, and then we're constantly updating things as they go on there as well.
Well, I really want to thank you so much for, for leading by example, for wanting to preserve our history. In particular, again, we've been talking to Marcus Walsh, president of Preservation Rockford Company, again, a nonprofit organization dedicated to the proactive protection, saving, and repurposing of historic architecture in Rockford. Keep us up to date on what you're working on. We'd love to lend you support in any way we can. If there's an event people should show up for, asking for resources, volunteers, we're here to help you out.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Everyone go to the Facebook page. Again, it's the organization is Preservation Rockford Company, and there is a GoFundMe where you can help out. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day, my friend.
You as well. Thank you.
Take care. Thanks. Bye. Let's take a break here, and we'll continue in a moment on WCPT 820 Heartland Signal, KKNW 1150, KTNF AM 950. Of course, hello to our friends on Facebook and YouTube. We'll be back in a moment.
Hey, Google, play WCPT.
Streaming Chicago's progressive talk from TuneIn.
From city streets to political beats, you're driving it home with Patti Vasquez. Your progressive talk fuels the ride.
Thank you so much for joining us as we continue our drive home here on WCPT 820 Heartland Signal, KKNW 1150 in Seattle, KTNF AM 950 Minneapolis, St. Paul. Hello to all of our friends listening on Facebook or YouTube, or maybe as our Friends from Politics Bar calls it, our future time listeners on all our podcasts, which are available wherever you listen to your podcasts. Coming up right now is a conversation with a professor of history at Rutgers University. Professor David Greenberg has written a piece called Liberalism and Patriotism in the latest edition of the States Forum that's called Double Security. It's issue 2, winter 2026. He's also written a book called John Lewis, A Life, and I would love to learn more about that book as well. Professor, thank you so much for joining us. Tell us a little bit about your book on John Lewis.
Although I don't mention John Lewis in my essay in the States Forum Journal, he does really embody liberalism and patriotism going together. My book is really the first and the, if I can say so, definitive biography of John Lewis, who I think people will know was a great hero of the civil rights movement as a young man, and then a long-serving congressman from Atlanta's 5th District until his death just a few years ago in 2020. And it's based on research in 40 or so archives and close to 500 interviews, and really tells the story of a remarkable man who rose from poverty in Jim Crow, Alabama in the 1940s and 50s to the heights of political power in the halls of Congress, his courage in facing down George Wallace's state troopers and the regime of Jim Crow and helping to lead America to a much better place in regard to racial equality and freedom. And anyway, there's a lot more I could say about the book, but I know we're here to talk about the essay.
I think that, sorry, that's my mom calling. My mom's calling.
Well, she must like the book, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. She's like, ring, ring. I do think, as you mentioned, John Lewis, while not referenced in this piece that you wrote, Liberalism and Patriotism, I think a lot of people would say that, John Lewis embodied what this country, fighting for what this country can be and leaving that legacy and that example for us. And what you write about liberalism and patriotism, and that Democrats have essentially conceded the territory of patriotism, that when we wave the flag, I mean, I agree that it can seem performative, like almost as though we put it out because, well, if we don't, then and I get mad that somehow Democrats aren't patriotic, and you write a lot about that. So break it down for folks about your view that the language we use, we kind of over-explain things, and we've leaned into identity politics, which I know a lot of people would push back on. But let's talk about your perspective.
Yeah, I mean, there's several pieces of this, and I hope we can kind of get to them in turn. But, you mentioned a performative nature of it. There is a way, I think we can all agree, that waving the flag, mouthing patriotic slogans can seem like a form of virtue signaling, maybe a kind of right-wing virtue signaling. We're used to kind of hearing that as a term thrown at the left. Oh, you're just sort of going through these symbolic motions as a kind of gesture to prove where you stand. And I think it's understandable given the way that many politicians cynically have used the flag to try to drum up support for unpopular wars or unpopular policies, or to cow or silence dissent. It's understandable that people may have some reluctance to engage in a completely uncritical waving of the flag, a kind of jingoism, right? Nobody's calling for that. And yet at the same time, I think on the left, the tendency to critique America and to point out its failings, has lapsed into, in some cases, an anti-Americanism, or in some cases, a willingness to almost wash their hands of America. I mean, one example I'll give that's going around a lot is hearing people talk about, I'm trying to get citizenship in, some European country, or people talk about, I'm going to move to Canada, if Trump wins. I mean, Trump did win. I don't know how many people actually moved to Canada, and no knock on our Canadian friends. But no, we're not moving. We're not getting German citizenship. We're staying right here and fighting for our country. That should be the reaction. And I think there can be a tendency on the left to let our criticisms of where our country is going, what our current administration is doing, flaws that we see in our history, in our past, lead to a souring on the country altogether. And the statistics, unfortunately, bear this out, that fewer Democrats or liberals will declare themselves to love America than do their equivalents, in the Republican Party or on the right. And I think that's unfortunate, that it's very possible to love America, to identify faults with it, and to want to repair that. And that, indeed, there's a long tradition of liberal patriotism that acknowledges America's shortcomings but sees patriotism as consisting of the desire to improve it.
Here's what I have been thinking about this, because I do know people, I actually know people who have moved, and there was a piece earlier this year that I read about how Americans are leaving the country in the biggest numbers since a trend that has not been seen since 1935, which includes elements like rising costs, and an ability to work remotely obviously plays into that as well. So there's actually a little bit of flexibility there. But I also wonder if it's a read from people who believe that it's not sustainable for them here, whether it's healthcare, affordable housing, and fighting for something when you can't survive is very hard to do, right? I mean, I have an adult son who has a disability, and I know that when I'm gone, I don't know that this country is a place where he'll be safe. So if someone like me is trying to figure out, safety, it's why people came here, was to create a better life, to be safer, to, and right now, a lot of people, that maybe they're liberals or from any, political background, just see that this is not sustainable. That might be an element too, don't you think?
It may be, and I don't know if that's empirically the case or not. I mean, I think healthcare costs are high around the world. They may be higher here, and that's always been a strong element of criticism of our healthcare system, and one that I think should be an urgent part of our efforts to fix the healthcare system. In fact, generally, I think Obamacare has been a popular reform and one that Democrats led the way on, but it's acknowledged one of the things it did not do well was control costs, and so that is obviously a factor. But again, for most of us, I think the question should be, how do we stay here, commit to this country, and fix some problems? It's something that I think is in the American liberal tradition, a reformist strain that says, we are capable of overcoming our problems, of instead of turning our backs on our country, of writing off our country, of damning it with epithets, authoritarian or fascist or what have you, saying, no, this is a country that is democracy, even if certain democratic norms are being challenged or eroded, and insisting we believe in it enough to take advantage of the democratic opportunities to make it better. So again, being patriotic doesn't mean uncritical acceptance of the way it is and a refusal to challenge or seek to improve it, but it does mean having a certain attachment, just like you wouldn't leave your family, just like you wouldn't leave, a lot of people feel attached to their neighborhood or to a community. We have bonds of attachment, and that, traditionally those have attached to country as well as to other elements of our identity.
I would say that if I was in an abusive relationship, I would leave my family. I mean, I would take the members that also need to be safe too. And that's, I think that, I don't know why that popped into my head, but that's because, if someone can't afford, again, this comes down to, as you mentioned, criticizing what this government does should be part of what's considered patriotic. Fighting for people's ability to stay in their home, to have health care, which is what Democrats talk about those things. I mean, we do spend a lot of time, shaking our fists at what the Republicans are doing or what Trump says and things like that. And I see them trying to work to make sure that government programs are protected and available, right, while the Republicans chip away at them. And somehow, I don't know why, I guess what part of it is we don't do a good job of framing is that as being unpatriotic, I guess is another way to look at it for me. So let's say a Democrat takes your advice. What do Democrats need to do to rekindle patriotism? What does that look like for someone who, working two jobs, who can't make rent? What patriotism should they be, I guess, embracing?
Right. Well, I think there are a number of ways in which we have sort of, in recent times, looked at liberal positions without understanding the patriotic dimension. I mean, if you think about immigration, for example, I think actually many Democratic politicians, liberal politicians, have done a fairly good job of articulating immigration as part of the American story. Obama used to like to point out that, all of us, except for the descendants of Native Americans, are in some sense immigrants. We all came here from somewhere else at one point. But we've lost a sense of the advocacy for assimilation, that somewhere along the line in recent decades, assimilation became seen as a negative rather than what makes immigration work. When I was in school, I learned this as a positive good, that you came from another country and you retained that heritage and an attachment, whether it was, Irish or Italian or from, one part or another of Africa, and you could remain quite proud of those traditions and the culture that came with you, while also assimilating into a broadly American culture and feeling that you didn't have to relinquish the traditions you came from in order also to adopt American mores and American folkways and American ways of doing things. Instead, it sort of became either or. Assimilation, as it became taught in many schools. Sometimes here, I think ed schools have been a problem. Came to be framed as coercive rather than as part of what makes us all one people. I do think when it comes to identity politics, it's a similar kind of thing. Obviously, I think we need to give full credit to people's identification with racial, religious, national aspects of their identity. But again, that shouldn't supersede a loyalty to the American ideal. The political scientist Samuel Huntington, about 20 years ago, wrote this kind of rather prescient book called Who Are We? And Huntington was kind of flirting with a kind of right-wing, almost in some ways proto-Trump politics that obviously doesn't sit well with me. But there were elements of his analysis that I thought were spot on. He noticed how much people were replacing their loyalty to the country with what he called subnational or supranational loyalties. By subnational, he meant demographic elements of contemporary identity politics, like your loyalty to a racial or gender or sexual affiliation. By supranational, he kind of was thinking of sort of global elites, like the Davos crowd, if I can be a little glib in that regard, of people who really see a global identity as more important than any American identity. And we can see this in the behavior of sort of corporations that are happy to relocate headquarters or to offshore work or to do what's kind of necessary in the interest of the economic well-being of their company at the expense of an attachment to the United States. So at both the level kind of lower down than the country and the level above, people were placing their loyalties on either side. And I think another way we could see it is, as a historian.
I do have a question because I don't want to get too far away from assimilation, right? Because look, my mother came here from Mexico, and she wanted to live in an all English speaking neighborhood so that it would help her, grow as an English speaker and in a way assimilate. Also, because she wanted to have different opportunities. But that happened. There wasn't like a push then that I'm aware of, that she's ever told me about, to have English as the only language, like the sort of assimilation through coercion. So when the right wants to pass English only orders, is it about building Americans, or is it about making people feel unwelcome? Is where I'm coming from, and I think where a lot of liberals come from. Is it more that liberals abandoned it, or rather than coercion that we refuse to bless?
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously the two are in relation to each other and feed each other, and this is how extremism works, and why in our current politics, people are embracing right-wing extremism as a response to the left. Liberals and Democrats having moved to the left, and then vice versa. So it creates a very negative dynamic. But I think in the initial space, the issue was, we stopped moving away from people like, your mother toward programs that say, oh, you don't need to learn English, or English doesn't need to be the primary language for the United States. And when that started taking hold, then you saw a response on the right that was saying, oh, no, it must be English only. And so you had a kind of drawing up of extreme lines. I mean, ideally, it can be a voluntary thing. I think most immigrants do see a value in having English as a common currency of language, not as something that needs to. I believe Trump, in one of his many kind of symbolic, high-handed gestures was, okay, English is now our official language. But, there's no formal act of Congress or anything, though, just sort of his declaration. But yeah, this becomes a reaction to a perception that there were communities where English wasn't being learned or being learned sufficiently. So the two play off each other. And I think what's important is to try to find grounds of unity, grounds of commonality. Say there's nothing wrong with having English as a common language, not as a signal of making anyone feel unwelcome, but as a way of binding us all together with certain shared customs, languages, ways of doing things.
Right. We are talking to Professor David Greenberg, Professor of History at Rutgers University, and I do want to invite you back, because I know that we're a little bit constrained for time here, and I'm sure that, I think my listeners want to join that. Like, we have a text screen. I want to make sure that they have the opportunity to join this conversation. Would you be willing to come back and talk about this essay and your other thoughts on liberalism and patriotism? Because you gave great examples about Bill Clinton, Adlai Stevenson, who was my dad. That was the last Democrat my dad voted for until Al Gore. He voted for all Republicans in between. Yeah. Yeah, it was. Well, he hated the Bushes, but that's a story for the next time, perhaps. My dad was second-generation Irish, so I come from a very eclectic background politically. My dad was a lifelong Republican after Adley, and my mom's a lifelong Democrat. So I'd love to continue this conversation. I want to encourage folks to check out Professor Greenberg's book, John Lewis, A Life, and you can find that wherever you shop for books. We look forward to having you back, my friend.
Okay, and in the meantime, I urge people to go online and look for the States Forum.
Yes.
It's a new journal put out by a group that is trying to put out new ideas that will help people kind of find a revitalized liberalism, revitalized progressivism that can speak to the moment that we're in.
Outstanding. Again, that's the States Forum. The column or the piece, the essay that Professor Greenberg wrote is Liberalism and Patriotism in the issue 2, winter 2026 of Double Security. Federal states. There's a lot going on this cover. I love it. Thank you so much, Professor. Have a wonderful evening.
Sure. My pleasure to be on. Good talking with you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, tuning in, everybody. Have a great evening. Talk to you later. Love you, Lady B.